What's going on, you guys? Riley here. Today we've got a super fun video. Today we are reviewing this 2019 Silverado that doesn't look like a typical Silverado. This one is done up by my friends over at PaxPower, which is a company that takes a base Silverado and turns it into this. And not only that, they also take base F-150s and convert them essentially into Raptors with a V8. So we'll talk more about what they do here in a little bit, but first, let's talk about this truck right here. So this truck right here started life as a 6.2 liter LTZ Silverado that looked just like this, very base and stock and unsuspecting, and now it has turned into this. And what this is basically, if you went to a truck website for aftermarket parts and hit the select all button, you get this. Usually I'm not a fan of vehicles that just have absolutely everything done to them, because to me it's a little much. This one, however, everything works perfectly. I love how this truck looks. I wish all the Silverados look like this. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the details on this truck, why it's, you know, such an awesome truck, and then we'll talk about what it costs and all that fun stuff, take it out for a drive and see what RP thinks. So this is PaxPower's Stage 3 truck. So this is their top truck that they do. Some of the most noticeable things you get on their Stage 3 trucks are, of course, the wider Fender Flares, which you can probably see there. They stick out an extra 3.5 inches on both sides of the truck, totaling 7 inches wider than your typical Silverado. And going down the road, you gotta kind of work for it a little bit more just to make sure you're in the lines and not gonna run over somebody in a Corolla or something, because it's just such a massive truck, and you definitely notice that right off the bat. And also, to complement the wider Fender Flares, you also have this aftermarket hood, which this is the first and only aftermarket hood I've seen for this body style Silverado. Absolutely love the way that looks, and I believe you can buy that by itself from PaxPower if you wanted to for your Silverado. So that's a pretty cool little thing as well. The biggest part of this truck is going to be its suspension setup. It's an adjustable king suspension that you can set up if, you know, you wanted to go take it down some sand dunes and do 100 miles per hour in the desert, or if you're going to be daily driving it and that type of thing. So the suspension setup is extremely fancy. Anybody that knows anything about suspension, you know that King makes pretty much the best suspension in the game. Also, it has a Baja kits, long arm travel and control arms, and all the suspension components are completely revamped to also accommodate for that wider stance. So just when you sit here in front, you're like, oh my goodness, that's a lot of width. The wheel and tire setup are going to be some 37-inch Toyo open country tires that have a super aggressive, meaty look to them. Also, they're 12.5 inches wide, which is kind of the typical lifted truck width and height and everything. And then some 17-inch wheels. These are so sick. I love the way these look. That is definitely one of my favorite wheel choices. Now, just about everything on this truck is touched. Like I said earlier, you have the aftermarket ADD bumpers with the light bar built in. You have a switch inside to turn the light bar on and off. And all the stuff is painted. It's completely just done up. This is a truck that I'm struggling to talk about because there is so much stuff done to it. I believe the lift over a factory Silverado is 4 inches. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is correct. But they call this truck the Jackal, which is kind of a jab at the Raptor. They needed a cool name for us Chevy boys, and Jackal does sound pretty sweet. Also, coming back to the rear here, if I can get us a better shot, you have the ADD bumpers on the rear as well, with a couple light pods that are integrated inside. The dual exhaust, which is a Chevrolet Performance Exhaust. It sounds really good. Here's a listen. And to go with the exhaust, they also have a Chevrolet Performance cold air intake and a Chevrolet Performance tune as well. So based on the testing that PaxPower has done, I believe it makes 18 more wheel horsepower, which they equate to about 22 more horsepower at the crank. Hence where you get the 442 horsepower decal right up here, as opposed to the typical 420 horsepower found in your typical stock Silverado 6.2 liter. So plenty of power. I think the biggest difference to me is going to be the throttle response. Just driving it around for the past day, it's like as soon as you put your foot in that thing, it's like, whoa, and it just kind of comes to life. and I thought it was going to be the opposite because the truck is so big and so heavy, the tires are so massive, the bumpers add a bunch of weight. I thought it was going to feel very sluggish, and it was actually quite the opposite. It's a lot more peppy than a stock Silverado. Now, I'm sure I'm forgetting some things to mention with this truck because there is just so much. But like I mentioned earlier, it started life as an LTZ Silverado, which has just about all of the features, but it also has a ton of chrome on it from the factory. So all of the chrome has been removed off the bumpers, the door handles, window trim, grille. It's all painted black. So when you go to PaxPower and get one of these trucks, they take care of everything for you and totally just change the way the whole truck looks. However, one of the awesome things about taking an LTZ and converting it into this truck is you get all of the LTZ features. So there is the forward-facing camera. It has 360-degree cameras. It's got a heads-up display to show your speed on the windshield. It has the tailgate that goes up and down. It does both. And it also has the amp research steps. So when you open the door, steps go down. When you close the door, steps go back up. As far as the interior on the truck, it is a typical LTZ truck interior. It has the fancy little rear view mirror that converts into a camera. Here are your little switches for your light bar in the front and the back. So kind of a cool little place for those. But everything else in here is the same as an LTZ. Wireless phone charger, heated and cooled seats, heated steering wheel, adaptive cruise control. I mean, all your modern features. It's got the sunroof. But what's nice about this truck is, for example, on a Chevrolet Trail Boss, you can't get any of those nice interior features. But when you can get an LTZ, you can make it look cool and you get the awesome features. It's kind of the best of all worlds. Only downside to all that, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. But if you got the money, then you're going to definitely enjoy your truck. Now, I think I've covered just about everything that the guys over at PaxPower do to the truck, at least from the outside and walking around it. Like I said earlier, the biggest thing is the entire suspension setup. It's all just set up to go hit the desert and go fast. I mean, I know it gets kind of outplayed. Everyone's trying to beat something that is, or make something that beats the Raptor, but I think this finally does it. And also this one has a V8 with a great exhaust sound. It's extremely capable, has a lot of horsepower, looks good. If I can open this hood, that was kind of tough to do with one hand. But here you can see your GM Performance cold air intake, which compared with the tune and the exhaust, it's like the perfect little combination. The throttle response is much improved. And then your good old 6.2 liter naturally aspirated Chevy small block V8. But everything else under here is pretty much factory. It would be really cool to drive this truck with a supercharger mounted there on top. So maybe one day that'll come around. I know Chevrolet has been very secretive with releasing their ways to tune their trucks. But just looking at the camera screen, it does not do this truck justice. The amount of heads that this thing turns is ridiculous. It's just as much if you were driving down the road in a bright green Lamborghini. Except a lot of the attention is from other truck guys. I've had 3 guys in the newer Raptor just break their neck looking at this thing. Had a guy in a Ram Rebel earlier just break his neck looking at this thing. People on the side of the road are always like staring. It creates so much attention, and while driving this thing, you definitely feel like a badass. Definitely makes you want to go out and just drive it off-road. This field out here is looking extremely tempting. Would have a lot of fun out there. But speaking of driving the truck, let's go ahead and hop behind the wheel and see just how a massive lifted off-road Silverado drives. Can you still daily drive this? Is it okay to drive on the street? Well, let's go ahead and find out. All right, well, let's go ahead and take this beast out on the road and see how it drives out on the street, which is where most people would be driving it most of the time. I get there's gonna be some people out there that just buy this thing to do 100 miles per hour in the desert, which that is way cooler than driving in the street. But for us regular folks that drive it around town, going to pick up some eggs from the grocery store, how does it drive? Really good. So like I mentioned a little bit earlier, the first thing I noticed when I got in this truck was just how sensitive the throttle was. I mean, just a little maybe tap and it's just like, whoa, it comes to life really, really quickly. Also, most noticeable is just how wide this thing is. So going down the road, this is a pretty narrow road and I'm like, all right, am I in the lines? I think so. Am I gonna hit the mailbox? I hope not. Am I gonna go in this lane? I hope not. Like it's a wide truck. So right off the bat, I would say that's a bit of a con if you're gonna daily drive the truck. You have to pay more attention. I mean, yes, it's an expensive truck, and we'll talk about the price here in a second. It's an expensive truck, but it's just wide, so you don't wanna hit anything, and you really don't want anybody to hit you. Granted, if they do, it's really going to do some damage to their car because these bumpers are massive, they weigh a lot, it's just metal. That would hurt. But the truck itself is actually easy to drive. I mean, aside from being wide, if you're on somewhere with wider lanes, the truck's very easy to drive. You really don't compromise much of the street manners of this truck, which to me is one of the coolest things. I will say it's a little bit stiffer than a typical Silverado, but it's a big lifted truck on 37s. I mean, what do you expect? Also, the suspension is adjustable, so I'm not sure how it is set right now. I don't know if it's set to be stiff or if you can tone it down. I don't know exactly what setting it's on. So you can customize it however you'd like, which is cool. Going over those railroad tracks, those are some of the worst railroad tracks in Houston, and it just kind of glides over them. I would get in serious trouble with this truck if I owned it because, for example, on this road here, I'd be like, and I'd just drive off in the grass just because you can. It's just, the temptation is always there. Anytime you see dirt, mud, or grass, it's like, I could go through that, but I'm not. And I guess that's where my other dilemma would be with this truck, is that it's so expensive, I don't want to tear it up and break anything on it. So this package is their most expensive package. It has literally everything like we showed and talked about here a minute ago. Suspension, wheels, tires, bumpers, light bars, literally everything. This package is $35,000. It's a lot of money. However, when you take everything into account, and if you started to piece everything out a la carte, so the fenders, the hood, I mean, everything wider, that money. You got to install, paint. The suspension alone is super expensive. King shocks and King suspension, and then the Baja suspension setup and everything like that. It just adds up. So yeah, I know $35,000 is a lot of money. However, when you really think about it, let's say you find a really good deal on a Silverado somewhere, buy something used or buy one new. You can find Silverados all day, every day for $40,000. So now you add $35,000, which is almost the price of the truck when you think about it that way. Now you're up to $75,000, which is pretty much in the range of where would be buying a Raptor. Now, no, for 40 grand, you're not going to get a truck with all these options. You still can get a nice truck for 40 grand and have it look just like this and perform just like this off-road. So that is where it starts to make sense. And you're like, oh, well, would I rather have a Raptor or would I rather have this? Everybody's got a Raptor. Not everybody has this. And just casually going there, the 6.2 liter mated to the 10-speed automatic transmission. It's like perfect. I think the 6.2 is overkill in most situations if you were just buying a regular truck. For this truck, it makes sense. I think the extra power, extra torque helps out a lot with just the extra weight that this truck has. Road noise isn't really bad. These are the Toyo Open Countries, actually a really good tire. That's one of the things I was kind of surprised about. I thought this, before I drove this truck, I really thought it was going to beat me up. The common thing is like, oh man, aftermarket stuff and lifted trucks, they don't ride good, they're rough, they'll beat you up. It's really not bad at all. I was quite surprised. This guy's gonna pull out here in front of me. Alrighty, thank you, sir. Bottoming the exhaust. I mean, that's just easing into it, but such a great exhaust note. The Chevrolet Performance Exhaust. First time I've heard this in person. I've seen a lot of videos and stuff on it. I'm like, oh, that sounds good. Hear it in person, it sounds really good. I don't know how well it's gonna come across on camera. It's a very deep tone, and to me, when I think of like a truck exhaust, I don't want it to be super loud. I think that's more for like sports cars and stuff like that. I want the truck exhaust to be deep. That's exactly what this is. But I just keep going back to how much trouble I would get in this truck if I owned it. I'd be getting trespassing charges every time I drove this truck because I'd be going places I'm not supposed to be going because it's just that much fun. It's so tempting, and it's just easy to drive. I mean, I would totally daily this. This would be the coolest daily ever. And after driving it, I got to drive it yesterday pretty much the entire afternoon. After driving it all yesterday and now today, it's like, man, I want this. I want a truck now. Now, yes, this is their top of the line package, and yes, it's a lot of money. However, if you don't need or want all of the stuff that this truck has, they do have other options. They have a stage 1 and a stage 2, which do cost less money and still get you a lot of really great parts. So if you just wanted the suspension, the lift, and some stuff like that, probably about $15,000 or so. Then, you know, once you start adding everything on, the bumpers alone are like $3,000 or something for the front bumper, and then probably another 2 or 3 for the rear. So everything just adds up. What I like about PaxPower is they are not using cheap parts. Once you start to do your research on what they've used, it's all super expensive, high quality stuff. And that's kind of the point, is, you know, to compete with the Raptor. The Raptor got such a great reputation because you can take it off-road, drive super fast, and they're reliable. Nothing really breaks on them. You can jump them, for crying out loud. So in order to compete with the Raptor, you have to be using, you know, very high quality, high standard products, and it's what you get. You just gotta pay a lot of money for it. So where PaxPower started off was originally taking like a Platinum or a Lariat or FX4, F-150, and then converting them into Raptors. So the kind of same thing this truck has, you know, suspension, the wider fender flares. Here's a couple photos of some of the stuff that they've done. To me, that's actually even a cooler conversion than this truck here, just because that is the Raptor that all the Ford guys want. None of the Ford guys said, I want a Raptor with a V6. That was never like, yes, I need that. Now that it's out, everyone's like, all right, I'll take it. But that's never the thing that people are like, I want that. So I think it's cool they found what customers wanted and then went out and built it. So if you're a Ford guy and you're interested in that, then you can, you know, hit them up, message them, call them, whatever you need to do to get, you know, basically a V8 Raptor. But what's cool for me is the guys over at PaxPower are located about 10-15 minutes away from where I work. So they're over here in good old Houston, Texas. So you can come see your boy, buy a truck from me, and then let's get it. Let's get it. Oh, it's always funny to me when giant just things move so quickly. It's pretty quick for being a giant truck. So if you guys are interested in getting your truck customized by them, I'll put all of their links and everything in the description below. You can go check out their Instagram, which is where, to me, my favorite thing is looking at the before and afters. Like this truck, I mean, it just looked like a base truck with a bunch of chrome all over it. Now it looks like this. I mean, I find that really entertaining to watch what they take and turn it into. So their Instagram has a whole bunch of stuff like that. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer as much as I can. But if you really need like technical questions, then ask the guys over there. They'll know a lot more than me. I'm just the guy that they thankfully trusted for a couple days to drive the truck around and let them and also you guys know what I think about it. But those are just some of my thoughts and opinions on this badass Jackal Silverado. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Hopefully it's brought you some insight as to what you can do with this platform. I mean, not a lot of people have taken the Silverado and turned it into something like this. So the potential is there. Huge shout out and a huge thank you to the guys over at PaxPower for trusting me with their truck for a couple days. They actually told me I could take it off-road as long as I didn't take it in any deep mud and get the truck stuck or do anything real dumb. But I don't know, I feel wrong taking such a nice truck and taking it off-road, and it's not mine. So appreciate the offer, but I'll return your truck nice and clean for you. But thank you guys for watching this video. As always, if you're in the market for a new or pre-owned car, come see your boy over at Parkway Chevrolet in Tomball. And for now, guys, that'll wrap up this video. So thank y'all for watching. I will see y'all in the next one. Take it easy. Hit it! I like this. I like this a lot.